Let's talk about your newsletter a little bit. So it was down for a while you spent that little bit of time in Portuguese prison, that we probably shouldn't touch on. But so little sense of humor, those policemen in Portugal.
I look great in that hat. It was totally worth
it. Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Brought to you, as always, by the marvelous formatting software Vellum. How you doing, Doug?
Gotta love them. I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good. I actually tested Vellum's support the other day, again, as I like to do every once in a while. They're amazingly responsive. And it's not just because they sponsor us. I think that actually goes the other way. They see something come from, they go, those two idiots again.
I'm fairly certain that Brad answered one time and goes, "You're a fucking idiot. This is how you do it." And
exactly.
When I ask the question.
Yeah.
So that's usually
they're good at phrasing. Yeah, they're good at phrasing "you're an idiot" really politely. So, I had a thing with foreign translations and importing them and stuff like that, and super helpful. Walked us through and improved the situation greatly, which always happens when I deal with their support. So, thank you, Vellum. Thank you also to our Patreon supporters. It's a great thing if you can show a little love to the show. It's only a couple of bucks a month, and there's tons of extra stuff in there.
Yeah, we've got lots of fun stuff in there.
So. Yeah, it really supports us keeping the show going. So, but enough from me. We're going to dive right into the show because we're both very excited about this. Our guest today is David Gaughran, who's been a force within the author community for many years and someone we both turn to for his wide array of advice readily available through his website and newsletter. Dave, how you doing?
Hello. Thank you for having me, guys. And it's not raining today, which might be the first day in about 3 months here that it's not raining. So thank you for keeping me inside on the first sunny day of 2026. really appreciate that.
Yeah. You could be at the beach in the south of France, but no, we lock him into a podcast. All right, Dave, give us a little bit of background on how you first got into writing, publishing, and then how that stemmed into the other stuff that you do now supporting the author community.
Yeah, well, like most of you, I'm sure, I've been scribbling something as long as I can remember, but I only started kind of writing, like trying to write a proper book, if you like, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I'd say. I started thinking in the shape of books rather than just, the odd scrap of pages here and there. And the funny thing is, I was actually working for a big tech company, and I quit my job just after the IPO, which is good timing. I quit my job and I decided to travel the world and bang out that first book. And after trunking a couple of embarrassing false starts, thankfully, I stumbled across a real idea. And when you get that first real idea, you're like, oh, this is what a real book looks like. Okay. And so I labored away on that for, I don't know, it took me 2 or 3 years to write the first one because I was flitting between jobs and places and figuring out how to write a book, which took me a while anyway. And then I tried to publish it the traditional way, which was pretty funny because all my old colleagues in this tech company were emailing me going, "How are you getting on with the book?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm trying to get an agent, trying to get a publishing deal, not really getting anywhere." And they were like, "Why don't you just publish it yourself?" But this was like 2007 or 8 or 9 or something like that, before I'd heard about self-publishing anyway. And I was like, no, that's it's only mad people do that. Right, yeah. Like that's not any way you can make money or a career or gain respect or kudos or whatever you're looking for. They said, no, that's only for the desperate or the borderline insane. So I didn't take their advice. And then a few years later, I started hearing about self-publishing. It started kind of creeping into the writers' forums where I was hanging out, trying to find out which agents to query and things like that. I started hearing more and more stories from people who are self-publishing and making some money out of it. And then when I eventually told my friends, "Oh, like my book is coming out on this date, I'm publishing it myself," and they were like, "Told you," they were telling me to do this for 2 or 3 years. So that was quite funny. That's how I initially started with my fiction. But at the same time I was doing that, I was also blogging about how to find an editor and how to find a cover designer, because there wasn't a lot of information out there, certainly outside of the romance community that I wasn't part of. There wasn't a lot of information out there for self-publishers. And what was there was guys who had come from traditional publishing with a big backlist and loads of experience and maybe some contacts. And they seemed to kind of hit the ground running. Whereas there was a kind of a big group of people who had been trying to break into traditional publishing perhaps, or maybe only got published by a small press or a couple of short stories like myself. And there wasn't really anyone serving that need, like teaching a real beginner about how to get going. So very quickly and very fortuitously, a kind of community built up around my blog as we were all literally taking our first steps together, sharing notes on who's a good editor, or who's a good cover designer, how to format a book. Like I was posting about these things as I was learning them, and we were all in the comments kind of helping each other, correcting each other. And that was something that really attracted me to self-publishing as well, that kind of community spirit of everyone helping each other. And I remember someone saying to me, is there any chance you could put these blog posts together in a PDF so I can print it out, so I can have it, sitting beside me as I go through these steps and publish my first book? So I was like, okay, I guess I could do that. And once I started doing that, I realized I was putting a book together. So I was writing the first nonfiction book for authors before I even really knew what I was doing. I was like, well, if I'm going to publish this blog post, I should probably clean it up. I should probably expand it. And I'd say it was about 25,000 words in before I admitted to myself what I was doing. So yeah, I totally fell backwards into it. And now that I've been doing it for 15 years and I have this kind of almost empire-like structure around my author education business, like people seem to think it was something that was planned out or engineered or crafted or designed, but I fell backwards into it.
That's amazing. And this is the part that kind of gets me, that I've been dying to ask you about. So very generously, you did the blog for a really long time. The newsletter is ballistic now. I mean, I won't put you on the spot and ask you how many subscribers you had, but I know it's anyone you talk to. Did you see Gaughran's new newsletter? It's so talked about. So everyone must get it. You've got 12,000 followers on YouTube. You've got some great stuff that people can go and watch for free on there. You have a course that's completely free. So you're giving everything away, Dave. How do you buy your Guinness?
Well, my business model, if you like, changed quite a bit during COVID, when every author selling fiction could see the difference it was making in their sales, having people trapped at home. But also it increased the amount of people like looking for activities, to do, so they didn't go crazy while they were cooped up. And so not everyone was making sourdough. Some people were publishing for the first time and writing books and, doing all the kind of things you can do when you're stuck at home. So there was a real uptick in that. And I decided to lean into that at the time. In fact, I was just in the process of updating some of my nonfiction books, and I had this big chunk of material for Let's Get Digital, which is my guide to self-publishing. And it didn't really fit with the structure of the book. I had this nice kind of 10-step structure. And then there was the marketing question. I kind of had it as a PS at the end of the book, this like 20,000 word kind of lump, but it didn't kind of fit with the structure of the book. So I thought it'd be much better to kind of embrace the way people consume this kind of content now, which is in video form. I think I was in the process of fixing up all the bits around the house while stuck at home again. And I noticed how often I was going to YouTube to look at, how to wire something or how to take care of like some little DIY project instead of reading an article like I always did before, or getting a book from the library. It was video content. So, and I'd been resisting. I could see the kind of educational nonfiction space moving in that direction for a while, but I was resisting it because I was a writer. I just wanted to write books. That's why I gave up my job to move into a different industry. I wanted to write books. But then I said, okay, well, it'd be nice to put a course together which doesn't cost $1,000, which anybody can access. There was a lot of talk at the time about diversity in the publishing industry and also people from different economic backgrounds that are struggling to access different resources. And I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if someone put together a really cool, professional, useful course and made it free? And then I was like, okay, well, cameras cost money. The video hosting alone, I think, is nearly $1,000 a year. So there's all these little expenses that, I was trying to think, okay, how can I monetize this if I'm not charging people for it? I was making already a little bit of money through things like I was doing a little bit of consulting on the side, and then I was making some money from affiliate income. So if I recommended a certain product or service and people then signed up for it, I might get a commission for that. So then I thought, okay, well, this is a good opportunity if I'm giving out something for free that I can put affiliate links in it and be upfront about that at the start and say, look, if you use this service, I'll get a cut. And, just state to people, that's the way it works. And for something like their mailing list service or something like that, or something like Vellum, for example, where it's a product that is pretty much universally loved. And I know that I can stand behind the quality of it. And if I recommend that and bring them business and then get a cut, then I can pay for all these really cool free resources for authors. So that kind of really jump-started my author education business, if you like, because then I realized, okay, I can actually give out almost everything for free now, once I had that pipeline working and generating enough money, I don't have to gatekeep anything behind a price tag anymore. So I made the Let's Get Digital, which on the nonfiction side was my biggest seller by far. I think, I don't know how many copies it sold in paid version, but it was something like 30 or 40,000 copies. It was quite a lot. And then I made that free. And now I think it's been downloaded, I don't know, 250,000 times or something since then. So it ends up growing not just your book sales, as every author knows, when they do a 99-cent book one or a free book one or a free promotion, it ends up increasing all your book sales, but it also increased the flow of people going through all my resources, whether that was my course. So I made like the Let's Get Digital free. Then at the back, here's a book marketing course to fill in that missing piece for you. Now you've published your book. How do you start selling? And that's free as well. And then if you sign up to that, you get the course book. And they're like, here's the catch. That's where he's going to charge us money. But that's free as well. So I really enjoyed that kind of process where everyone is waiting for the catch. And then there is no catch. Everything is free. And it's not like it's not like I break the course in half and then sell the second half of them for $1,000.
There's a bunch of course people that are like, fucking Gaughran's giving it away for free.
I know. Well, look, like when I started in self-publishing, we didn't have any of these $1,000 courses, and like I'm not against them on principle. I think they can be of value. I think there's a danger that authors, when they're starting out, will spend money on things that they shouldn't. And they'll pay money for a course when they should be buying a cover or buying themselves the time to write another 2 books before they start spending all this money. I've no problem with someone who's making money, spending money, and I've no problem with someone charging money for their time. Everyone's entitled to do that. But I think there's a danger that when you've spent all this money putting a course together, and then you do the numbers and you're like, well, now I have to charge $500 or $1,000 because I'm spending all this money on Facebook ads or whatever else. And then there's a danger of overselling it to people. When someone is starting out, I think there should be a stronger push towards investing that money in yourself in terms of your covers, in terms of your time to carve out time to write more books, in terms of editing. Beginners probably don't spend enough money on editing. So those things I think should be the focus of people's money. And then when they're up and running, they can spend money on whatever they like as far as I'm concerned. But getting to that point is the tricky part. And this comes even for experienced authors when it comes to marketing. There's a danger of always being attracted to the new and flashy thing and forgetting about the fundamentals and forgetting about what really is going to put money on your table.
And of course, the starting from zero, it's free. You can't express that enough to people how it's just out there and available, and you can get it. I think people don't grasp it because everything else is like, hey, you got to pay for it. Like you say, everybody's got a course. Some people who've put out one book have a course.
Well, the other reason I did it is because I'm also quite lazy. Back when I used to be on Twitter, when it used to be called Twitter, I used to have people and they'd send me a tweet going. And like, this is back when I had a book called Let's Get Visible, and it was $2.99, you know, and this guy was like, asked me a question, does your book cover this? And I was like, yes. Does it cover this? No. And I would recommend something else to him. And then it was about question number 12. And I was like, dude, I will send you a copy of the book. And if you think it's really good, you can buy a copy for someone else and then just pay it forward. And, you know, like anyone in my position will get a lot of emails from people and messages. And I understand why, especially when you're starting out. Like, you feel like you just need like some person there just to tell you what you're doing right and wrong, and you feel a bit lost. So it definitely is great for me that I'm able to point people towards things where there's no barrier, whether that's economic or otherwise, in terms of them engaging with the content. And then if they find it useful, they can share it, or they can buy a book, or they can do whatever they like.
You just got to bark at people like Nick does, so they'll leave him alone when they ask him questions. He barks at them, and just like you said.
Yeah, just set up an autoresponder with a link to my free course. All the answers are here. Please stop bothering me. I'm on the beach.
So while we got you on this, can you tell us a little bit just what does your course cover? So can you give us those answers now that we can?
Yeah, stop the emails.
Stop the emails.
Yeah, I wanted to teach people what book marketing is all about from start to finish. So it's kind of a soup to nuts thing. Is it nuts to soup or is it soup to nuts?
It's I
have many questions. Anyway, so yeah, like I think when all of us come into the business, we have a very backwards idea about marketing and what really sells books. You know, I think Hollywood does us a great disservice for the most part in how it presents the author's life and how they get their big break and the reasons why readers buy books. And we assume it's because of things like media coverage and, you know, the book critic of the Washington Post back when they had book critics. I think they all just got axed in the last week.
Yeah, I was going to say that's fresh news. Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, brutal stuff. They're the kind of things that are, appearing on Oprah's couch would have been the pinnacle of book marketing in the kind of Hollywood vision. But those things are not really the things that sell books. They are capable of selling books. Maybe for a certain kind of author who has nationwide book distribution, it can move the needle in terms of print and digital to a certain extent. But like, I know successful ebook authors, guys who've sold several million books, who've then thought, okay, everyone's always looking to step up to the next level. Even the guys at the top are always looking to step up to the next level. And then they spend 10, 20 grand on a hotshot publicist and they get on the national television and it does nothing for them, not anything close to the outlay that they've spent. So the things that actually sell ebooks specifically, especially self-published ones, ebooks which are, available on, when you're like, okay, a self-publisher will sell a certain amount of print, but it will largely be online. It'll be mostly at Amazon and in a handful of other stores. And I find that print sales, for me anyway, are generally a spillover of ebook sales anyway. So if I'm launching a new book, obviously you'll sell some paperbacks to your fans. And then anytime you have a sales spike with your ebook, whether you're running a promotion or something else is going on, an ad campaign, you'll see spillover into print. I personally find it hard to generate print sales directly. I usually generate more print sales by just boosting ebook sales. The first step that a lot of people have to make, especially in countries outside the US where ebooks aren't as big, is focus on ebooks. So your ebook is your central edition. Everything else should flow out from that. So you should focus on the ebook and making that great. And then you can produce your ancillary editions later on, whether that's print, audio, translations, whatever else. And then in terms of marketing, you should be focusing on the online stores and specifically the Kindle store and then some of the other ebook retailers if you're wide. And not trying to get print books into the hands of influencers or New York Times reviewer or some TV news anchor or whatever. So I wanted to teach people the things, how the Kindle store works is a big part of it because most of your sales are going to be there and you really need to know how it works. How to position your book in the marketplace, which is a very kind of slippery concept. But basically it means like, what genre of book have you written? And you need to know the answer to that question. And sometimes it's hard, even for an experienced author, to know which shelf exactly their book goes on. And there's a bit of a danger in the digital world where on Amazon, you can put your book on 3 different shelves at the same time, but you can only put one cover on your book. You only put one set of keywords on it. You can only put one blurb on it. So at one point, you're going to have to decide, is this a thriller wearing a sci-fi skin or is it a sci-fi adventure with thriller elements? And you're going to have to put that face forward, I would suggest. And once you know what genre you've written, then everything flows from that. Now you've positioned your book in the marketplace. So it should be in that category, obviously, on Amazon. And you should be familiar with that category. You should be reading in that category and know what tropes readers are responding to. You should be looking at the charts all the time to see what cover styles readers are responding to right now, what fonts you should be using on your cover. The style of blurb changes massively, not just from genre to genre, but from niches within. Like you can just look at romance, for example. Look at a blurb for historical romance versus contemporary romance. They're worlds apart. And sometimes they're written in different tenses. And sometimes they lean heavily on the tropes in the blurb and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's more about the setting for something like historical romance, I presume. It's very important that you familiarize yourself with your genre and that every piece of communication and marketing is an opportunity to convey genre that you shouldn't miss. And that's in your title, your cover, your blurb, your tagline, your Facebook ad text, the header on your email newsletters, your website graphics. Everything should convey that tone. And when you do that, marketing then just becomes about putting your book in front of the right readers because everything else is lined up. And so if I'm someone that loves space opera and someone puts their book in front of me and it's got a spaceship on the front with a cool planet in the background and it's got a certain kind of title, I'm probably clicking on that before I read the ad text and I'm probably clicking the buy button on Amazon before I read the blurb. So you make your job much, much easier when you position your book correctly in the marketplace and then make sure all your marketing is lined up.
And that's all covered in that course. And then now the newsletter kind of carries on from the course. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, so the course will give you the basics of all of that, and it's a mostly video-based course with some text elements, and we'll give you the foundation of that. And I do some things and kind of point people in the right direction for building a sustainable career. In that, I will encourage them to get a few more books out before they spend too much time and money marketing just one book, and then I show them how I build a launch plan for the third book in a series and then the fifth book in a series, just showing them how marketing can scale up. Now, it's not a course which spends a huge amount of time on how to build a 5-book plan, but I just want to show people, because sometimes, when you're looking at a best-selling author and you're at the start, it's really hard to see the steps in between. So I just want to show them a couple of the steps in between so they know what they need to build towards. Because, as I'm sure you guys know, as soon as you start releasing book 3, book 4, book 5, your marketing options just start multiplying.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about your newsletter a little bit. So it was down for a while you spent that little bit of time in Portuguese prison, we probably shouldn't touch on. But so little sense of humor, those policemen in Portugal.
All of them. They're just so weird like that. It's just like, yeah.
I just want to say I look great in that hat. It was totally worth
it. All right. So it's back, and your newsletter pisses me off because every time it lands in my inbox, I stop whatever I'm doing and I read it, and they're never short because you're quite funny how you phrase everything. So they're gripping. So once I start reading it, I can't stop reading it. But they're full of great tips.
Yeah, then he starts messaging me about it and like, hey, did you see David's blog? I've got to go read it too.
Yeah, now he's got to go read it too. So how do you come up with that content each and every week?
Well, when I switched to a weekly newsletter, I think in start of 2018 or 17. And so, yeah, it's been running for a while. And until I was off sick for a few months last year, I think I would only miss on average maybe 2 weeks out of the year, So that's I'm not doing the maths on that, but it's a few hundred newsletters anyway. But the way I've been able to kind of stretch out the content without it feeling like thin and insubstantial is just to go deep on a topic. So, for example, if someone would ask me a question about book club ads, and I get most of my ideas from the emails people send me, because it's a very good way of taking the temperature of the room, if you like, and knowing what issues authors are wrestling with right now. So when book club ads started becoming a thing 7 or 8 years ago, I was getting a lot of questions about them. So I decided to explore them. And it's the same way that I originally wrote my first book for authors. I'm kind of doing it step by step and saying, okay, here's what I'm trying this week. And I think I ended up doing 8, 9 or 10 part email series on book club ads as I was learning the ropes. And then I realized, okay, now I've got 20,000 words. That's the basis of a book. So I turned that into a book. And honestly, I've done that a few times where I've been digging into the inner workings of Amazon, and that turned into a book. So it's kind of a way of having a massive circle of beta readers as well. And so I've never been afraid to, because I got such a good response to those early kind of series of emails, I've never been afraid to say, okay, we're going to talk about this, and we're going to do it over 10 emails, right? And then really dive into an issue. And sometimes I'll run out of steam after a few episodes and I'll realize, okay, there's not enough here. And I'll just quickly move on and hope nobody has noticed. And they always notice, by the way. We're still waiting for part 4.
Does,
it's not happening. It's not happening.
It's usually Nick, isn't it? Nick's always the one pounding that to you.
Every week. But, there's always new challenges for authors, like the question of how to get noticed or how to sustain an audience. It does change a lot. The marketing fundamentals don't change a lot, but the kind of tactics of getting attention and all that and cutting through the noise definitely change. I was lucky enough to come into the publishing business with a tech background and with an advertising background specifically. But I actually didn't lean on any of that stuff at the start, because I was actually just talking about this in my newsletter last week, that I started in digital advertising 20 years ago, over 20 years ago now. And I started in copywriting 25 years ago. But I didn't use any of my ad skills until about 10 years ago, which seems a bit strange now when ads are the thing everyone talks about, almost to the exclusion of everything else. But back when I started when did I publish my first self-published book? 2011. And none of those ad platforms existed. Facebook ads didn't exist yet. Amazon ads didn't exist yet. Book ads didn't exist yet. The only thing that existed was Google ads, which I was very, very good at, but weren't very good at selling books. So I stayed away from ads for 5 years. I didn't touch them. So the things that we were using to sell books 15 years ago were quite different. They were like promo sites. We would do things like, we would lean more on price discounts. Like, you could put a book free, take out a couple of $50 ads and get in the top 100, which sounds crazy now, but the market was much smaller back then. So you only needed a few thousand downloads to get into the top 100 back then. But now the market has expanded so much that to make that kind of impact and to get the kind of visibility where Amazon will kind of take over and start selling your book for you, you need to put together a much larger number of downloads or a much larger number of sales. So then we're looking for what can really amplify things. Where are you getting that traffic source from? You can do those promo sites, but they won't launch you to the top of the charts like they used to, with the exception of BookBub, which is its own thing and very difficult to get. And it's a one-shot deal anyway. You can't get 5 BookBubs in a row, if only. But, so you need something else. So now those ad platforms serve that need, whether it's Facebook or Amazon or BookBub to a certain extent. That's where you're getting that accelerant, that fuel from to really throw a book into the top of the charts.
Well, so you also just recently posted a great and also free, listeners, you need to go find it, YouTube post talking about Facebook ads, which was a lot to absorb all at once. But I think we're kind of starting to see it's relying a lot more on the AI. And I think we've kind of discussed this a little bit beforehand, but like as Facebook ads seem to not work quite as well for books, or do you see where like that path might lead for the future? Like, do you think it's going to change a little bit, make it a little bit better?
I think Facebook ads work very, very well for books. And while the changes in the last year or two have definitely thrown some authors for a loop, and some of them have been pretty difficult to deal with in terms of, like, a lot of the authors we used to target have just disappeared. A lot of the genres and niches we used to target have disappeared. So that's made things very, very tricky. And the answer that Facebook is giving us, and some of the courses are pushing, is to just lean into the AI and just and that's definitely what Facebook wants us to do. They want us just to take our hands off the reins, to not control anything, just let their AI take over and sell our book for us. I think that's a huge mistake personally. Now, if you're getting good results from doing that, don't let me stop you. But the reason why I don't think it works very well is that the system is not designed for niche products like books. It's more designed for generic products like Coca-Cola or pizza. But a bigger problem is that we're not sending readers to our own website. If we were doing that, the AI system would work much better for us, because we'd have the pixel installed on our site that would send information back to Facebook out of which of those guys that are clicking are actually completing the sale. And the system would be able to fine tune itself and dial in and really target the right people. But we're not doing that. We're sending people to Amazon. We can't install the pixel on the Amazon site. So then the system is flying blind to a certain extent. So all the system can see is who's clicking on the ad. And you might think that's a good indication of who's going to buy it, but it isn't always. One thing that, any romance author you talk to will complain about is that they can no longer choose to only show their ads to women, or they have to go use very backdoor and complicated and not quite perfect methods to try and force the system. And Facebook just wants them to let go of that, let go of the reins there, and just say, look, trust our system. We'll decide who to show it to, and we'll show it to more of the people who are responding. But the system isn't that nuanced. It will see men clicking on the ad because they're making unkind comments underneath, because they're making jokes about the cover or salacious references to the images or something like that. And every woman, every romance or author experiences this. And the system doesn't see that. It just sees the click. It just sees the interaction. It doesn't see the content of it or the tone of it. It doesn't see that these people don't go to Amazon and don't buy the book. So it starts showing the ad to more and more men like that. So then the romance authors are in the position of paying money to get insulted, which is not great. And previously, they were able to go into the settings and say, only show my ad to women. I know there's men who read romance. I know there's plenty of men who aren't like that. But the system is going off track. So I'm going to only show my ad to women, and I'll have a lot better time and I'll make more money out of it. But now they've taken that control away. But there are ways of clawing back that control. And another example is placements, right? This is a huge one. So Facebook has kind of hidden a lot of the settings now, which really decide if your ad's going to be successful or not. And placements is a huge one. That decides where your ad is shown, because ads don't just appear in the news feed. They also appear, in Messenger. They appear in mobile games when you're playing. They'll pop up and you have to click a bunch of things to get rid of the ads. They appear all over the internet. And especially if you're trying to read like a news article on your phone, it's like the content is almost completely covered and you got to click it all away and you end up clicking on the ad. So the system, again, this is where the AI goes off the rails all the time. It sees all these clicks and it's thinking your ad is being successful because it can't see that those people have gone to Amazon and not bought your book. So it just keeps serving your ad more and more to what's called the audience network, because those clicks are very, very cheap, because savvy advertisers like me don't advertise on it. So it means there's less people bidding for those clicks. The clicks are a lot cheaper. Sometimes they're only a few cents each. And so the system will say, okay, we can get you cheaper clicks over here, and they'll serve 80, 90, 95% of your serving will go to this advertising network or this audience network, which is basically junk traffic, which almost never turns into sales. But if you know what you're doing, if you, for example, watch my free hour-long tutorial, you will see that there are ways to uncover and reveal those settings and go in and make sure that your ads are never shown in these places. And if you take my recommendation, you only show them on newsfeed. You'll pay a little bit more for your clicks, but they'll convert at a way, way higher rate.
That makes sense. So do you think that eventually Facebook's going to just be like only offer you the AI, hey, you just click this button and it's going to create your ad for you? Or are we still going to be able to get in there and fine tune some of that?
Well, I hope not, but that's certainly the direction of travel. I know, like, it's pretty obvious where they want to end up. They just want to have a big red button saying, advertise my product. And you just click that and the AI will take over and do everything for you. But again, the problem is that, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution that will cover every advertiser and every product and service being advertised. And I think Facebook has been getting a lot of pushback from people in this situation, because it's not just us who sell things on Amazon. There's all sorts of other suppliers and creators and all sorts of other people who mightn't be sending people to their own website. So it's definitely a problem, I think, that Facebook is aware of. Whether they do something about it or not is another matter. It all seems to be going in one direction, but you have seen them kind of step back on a couple of things. So we'll see. There's certainly a lot of people giving them strong feedback on this all the time. So they're definitely aware of it. Although this does feel like a decision that's being made at the very highest level, and they definitely want to push things in that direction. I just don't know how they solve the problem of finding out who has bought something on Amazon or not. So I don't imagine Amazon will ever want to share that with them.
Now, after 15 years of publishing at this point, right, are there certain topics that you think that you saw that advice you gave in the past, maybe even a few years ago, that just no longer holds true today? Or maybe you look at it now and you're like, ooh, I was just wrong about all of that. And it turns out I should have been thinking about it from a different angle.
My biggest personal regret is being late on email. Like I mentioned earlier that I switched to a weekly newsletter back in 2018, I think it was. Before that, I only emailed people when I had a new release or a sale or I wanted something from them. So basically, it was just a newsletter of asks. I don't know if you know the great book Newsletter Ninja by Tammy Lebrecht, but she always stresses that emails should be more gives than asks. And then when you want to ask for something, you're going to get a much better response. But unfortunately, she didn't write that book in 2011. She wrote it in 2017 or 18 or something. So I had 6 or 7 years. Thanks a lot, Tammy. I had 6 or 7 years of doing everything the wrong way. So, I think back in 2011, we thought we could write and release anything in any genre and people would buy it and we could have them all on the same mailing list and it would all work out just fine. Turns out that's not quite true. I think my first release was some kind of literary fiction-y thing. The second one was some kind of like slipstream science fiction, something or other. Then it was nonfiction. Then it was historical fiction. That's not really a great way to build a career. It's a lot of fun. It keeps you interested as a writer, especially if you're a bit ADHD like me. I think I am anyway. I appear to have all the signs, shall we say. So it definitely kept things exciting for me. So. Yeah. I do not have a medical license. If I ever approach you at a party wearing a stethoscope, run the other direction.
I just want a shirt that says undiagnosed because it solves a lot of the people's questions. They're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so like that was definitely a big one. Like if you want to build a career as a writer, I think it's important to pick a lane, at least to begin with, and release a few things in the same genre back to back. That definitely helps. But the newsletter was a big one because half the people on the newsletter didn't care about half the content, at least, So like I'd be releasing a nonfiction book for authors and then all these people who fans of my historical fiction were like, what is this guy talking about? I don't care. So people stop opening your emails. And then the people who are actually interested stop receiving them. It starts going into spam and promotions. And that's the thing I didn't really understand about emails, that it's not just about the people have lost interest. That becomes like corrosive acid on your list. And that's why you see falling open rates over time. If you, for example, don't engage in any list culling, or if you don't email people frequently, it doesn't just affect those who have lost interest. It actually affects Gmail putting it in the inbox of the people who are still engaged. The people who are still opening it might not keep receiving your newsletter if you don't maintain things. So yeah, I basically was doing everything backwards on the newsletter front. And then I started doing everything more correctly when after reading Tammy's book, and then my newsletter just took off like a rocket. And I was like, this is how you do it. Okay. So that's probably the biggest mistake I've made. Out of a crowded field, I should note, a pretty crowded field. That's the biggest one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and you didn't really get it wrong. You just weren't doing it right because you didn't know yet. So you've not really been wrong about anything.
Yes. So I'm glad to keep my unbeaten record intact. Thank you very much. I wasn't wrong. The world was wrong.
That's
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so let's bring some of your worldly wise help into the show. What are your 3 top priorities, focus, or staples that you think a new indie author should be focusing on?
Or an old indie author, because some of us.
No, we're going
to
get to that next. We're going to do it in 2 parts. Yeah, we're going to do this in 2 parts. So new.
I'm going to plagiarize the newsletter that I just wrote because it's my own and I'm allowed to do it. But no, I've been thinking a lot lately about fundamentals, because when I get emails from authors, it's invariably asking about the new thing, the new change on Facebook, the new email platform, the new this, and the fundamentals really don't change. Same way the fundamentals of a good story don't change. Like the skin a story is wearing might change. Like you might have new genres and niches and tropes pop up, but that emotional shape of a story that readers find satisfying, that doesn't really change, you know? So it's the same with marketing. You got to think about the product, the promotion, and the platform. And the product is not just the book. The book is important. If you don't have a book, it's pretty hard to sell a book. That's some massive advice for you there.
That's number 1 on the list.
It's easier to sell a book if you have a book. If you have a book to sell, it's easier to sell a book.
You know, it's ironic. There's a lot of people on Facebook who don't have a book and are trying to sell it. It's epidemic. So.
Yeah, and someone's going to comment, I'm selling my pre-order, so you know, I'm even wrong about that. But no, but more than the book, obviously, you know, and again, if we're going to have Captain Obvious on the podcast, commercial genres it's easier to sell books in commercial genres than non-commercial ones, right? But it's important to state the obvious things for people who are new to the industry, because like I certainly did when I got into publishing, that I was like drunk on this freedom and I wanted to publish like anything that popped into my head. But like being a little bit disciplined about it is important, because if you start building up an audience of one type of thing, they're almost certainly not going to come with you to the other thing. There are some genres where there's crossover, of course, like fantasy and science fiction, but like people who read my historical fiction aren't reading my science fiction. There's very little crossover there.
But wait, I've got this idea that it's a dog and it's a pirate and he dances. I think it should work. It's very, you know, commercially. It's just different.
I would read the hell out of that right now. I tell you. But like, you know, in the writing, we think about things differently as writers.
Yeah. So.
Like, I think we're often far more eclectic in our tastes as writers, and people who read aren't necessarily. Like, even for me in my head, historical fiction and science fiction are 2 sides of the same coin. We're kind of trying to say something about today through the prism of the past or the future. But readers don't consume it like that, I don't think. Most of them do.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So you don't have as much crossover as you think. So I think it's good to be disciplined and write in one genre, and preferably a more commercial one. And of course, to write a series as well. Everyone knows that. It's much easier to sell a series. But aside from that, I think everyone knows that. But I think people think about the positioning part a bit less. Sometimes it's very, very common to have written your first book and say, I'm not quite sure what genre it is. And that's always a kind of a bit of a warning sign to me, that it might be that there's nothing wrong with the book and the book is perfectly fine, but you need to figure out what it really is, you know, because every book might have a romantic thread in it. It doesn't make it a romance. Or every book might have a bit of mystery. All books should have a certain element of mystery to them, but that doesn't make it a mystery. So I think authors in that position might need to do a little bit more focused reading in the genre where they want to work and see, are they hitting those tropes, those genre conventions, and if it's truly that kind of book, and if they need to change the book or if they need to put it on another shelf. So once you get over that hump and you have the product and the positioning, you got to think about the packaging then, the cover, and all the things that we spoke about earlier. And that's the product. All of that together is the product. And then you need some form of promotion. So some kind of traffic to your book page, whether that's, I think ads is by far the most obvious candidate for that. And either Facebook or Amazon are the only ones that are going to deliver the real scale, where you're bringing in fresh meat all the time at scale. But when you're starting out, ads can be a bit tricky. So it might be better to focus on kind of the smaller promotional tools that I think new authors today kind of overlook. They jump straight for the Facebook ads course and they want to buy a ticket to the moon straight away. And they're probably better off just going to the promo sites, which might cost $50 or even less. And they will get you some reviews on your book. They'll get you some downloads, get things moving while you learn the ropes and while you work on books 2 and 3 and figure out how Facebook ads work and figure out all your keywords and figure out how Amazon works. There are smaller promotional tools that are available and much, much cheaper and don't require any specialist knowledge. You just need to fill out a form and they do the rest. You need the product, you need the promotion, and you need a platform as well. And I think some people sometimes focus on promotion and not the platform so much, or sometimes too much on the platform and not enough on the promotion. You need both together. They work quite well in synergy with each other. And by platform, I usually mean newsletter, but social media can fulfill that role as well. And what your platform is doing is turning buyers into returning customers, turning readers into fans that will come back for books 2, 3, and 4 and be your kind of unpaid promotional army out there in the world, spreading that word of mouth that is so valuable. So I think, you really need to make sure that's like kind of the 3 legs of the stool, that all of them are solid, because you need all of them. And without putting enough effort into each pillar, if you like, your author stool will be rocky. That's not a great analogy.
They make
your author stool will be rocky.
They make a cream for that, so you'll be all right.
I have rocky
Thank
stool.
God I don't have to use words for a living anyway.
My God.
But that is actually the name of this episode now. We're just going to title it The Rocky Stool.
Rocky Stools.
But I used to do quite a lot of consulting. I do less of it now. But like one thing I would often see, and these would be authors who've be huge bestsellers in their genre and sold millions of books. And often they'd be very, very strong on platform and less so on promotion. Or they'd be very, very strong on promotion, but they would have quite a small mailing list for someone who's sold millions of books. And so I think there's always room to improve no matter what level you're at in terms of where you should focus your attention. So if you're pretty confident with your ads and I've nailed the genre of this book, readers are responding to it. Maybe it's the platform part. Maybe you're generating quite significant sales spikes which then tail off, and you have that kind of witch's hat that romance authors speak about. They launch a book or they run a sale and then it dies off. But I think, the platform there can act as a safety net and help you just get bigger and bigger with every launch, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you release a book. Certainly when you start getting your mailing list really going, when you start getting over 10,000, 15,000 subscribers, you really start to see the impact at launches. And you start to be able to do cool things like splitting your send over 5 days. And then you're running your ads, and you're doing all these other things to get attention on your new release, and probably running sales on earlier books in the series. And you start seeing everything come together and bubble up and really starts making a difference to those royalty checks.
Well, you answered everything there, including the stepping up to the sort of the mid list as what do you do. So that's great. So what do you advise to authors to build their newsletter list? Because it's always tricky. So there's the starting from ground zero when you've got nobody but Auntie Edna that's on your list. And then there's once you've started building a little bit and you've got maybe hundreds on there, but you want to get to thousands. So let's tackle both sides of that.
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 elements to this. And one is to build a better mousetrap, to make sure that you have the technical stuff down. So you're not sending a newsletter from Gmail, that you're actually using an email marketing service, because that will make a big difference, especially when you start to grow your list. It'll make a big difference about how many of your emails will end up in spam and promotions, or will actually end up in inbox where people will actually see them. And I've done a bit of testing on this. And when I see a newsletter go into promotions, I see an open rate drop of at least 10%. So I know a lot of the companies out there say, oh, don't worry about it. It is a promotional email. It should be going into promotions. It's normal. You will see it does make a difference. So getting a handle on the technical stuff, using a good quality service that will get you into inboxes, making your emails look nice and not too sloppy, just putting a little bit of attention and just taking care of the technical side of it. So that's building your mousetrap. But I think what needs even more attention, and people probably need to focus on a bit more, is the bait, that lump of cheese that you're attracting the readers in with. So your reader magnet, the thing that you're going to dole out to readers for signing up to your list, the little bonus, the little free gift that you're dangling to get their attention. And I think everyone could benefit by spending quite a bit of time thinking about putting themselves in the reader's shoes. Always a good idea when you're thinking about marketing. Put yourself in the reader's shoes. They've just finished your book. they will probably never feel more positively about you, as long as you didn't make a complete balls of it, obviously. But
Thanks for
assuming you've landed the plane,
Yeah.
assuming you've landed the plane and haven't crashed it into the runway, assuming you've landed the plane safely, that's the best time to ask them for something and to give them a sign up and to give them a little push towards doing so by dangling something. Like I always look towards romance authors. They're generally at the forefront of marketing, but they're so brilliant with reader magnets. Like they might have a love story and then, it ends with the couple getting married. And then they'll have a honeymoon scene, a bonus scene that you can only get, by signing up to their mailing list. And I'm sure the hit rate on that is spectacular. But even if you have like just short story, or I've seen people do some creative things like thriller authors doing like FBI case files and things like that. Or I've seen space opera authors going, do you want to get a diagram of the ship, the hero's ship, and I come here and you can download it if you sign up to my list. Like things like that can be cool. But I think, a book or a story is always a safe bet because they are readers after all. And it's just another chance to hook them even further into your world. And so something that ties in with what they've just read is always good. You might have, I think everyone enjoys having a walk-on character who just comes on and chews the scenery, right? And then disappears, And I think for the writer, you're stuck in one character's head the whole way along. And then you have this totally different character come in and it's like a release for you and you really like take over. I think often readers can be like, oh, I wish I had more of that guy. So that character can sometimes be good for a little magnet or a little side quest for your hero as well. Also, always a solid choice. And as you start to grow and your world of books and starts to expand, you can have more than one magnet. I remember sitting in an audience at a conference and I think it was Erica Ridley or someone like that, who's brilliant at newsletters, was talking about how she has different magnets depending on which book people are reading or what part of her website they are on or something like that. And he just saw the penny drop with so many authors in the audience. They didn't realize you can have more than one. And that's very helpful, especially if you write across genre lines or if you have different series and, different heroes. It can be a way of cross-pollinating, for example. So then you get people doing smart things like, okay, you got your free book one, or your cheap book one, your series opener. And then you have like a side quest at the end of that as your reader magnet and people sign up for that. But then at the end of the series, you have a new reader magnet, perhaps, where people get introduced to the new series. You can push them across to that. So there's a variety of things you can play with that. But I think if you're not getting a good response to your reader magnet, either swap it out for something else. Like, you can write a 2,000 word short story. So, it mightn't be a massive undertaking to come up with something new. But if you're getting good reader response to it and you're not getting the signups, look at your welcome sequence. Make sure that everything is going fine on a technical sense. Like, here's a massive mistake I made with my reader magnet for years. Well, not a mistake. Here's something you can possibly optimize. I noticed that when I started digging into it, I was like, a lot of my emails are going into spam. And this is the first one, like the confirmation email that people were getting. Because I was putting, I think, images into it and too many links. And I think I was using free in capital letters in the subject line. All of these things, especially in the first communication, Gmail can look warily at. So a certain percentage were going into spam. So I changed it to something else like your complimentary book or some other word other than free. And I took out the images and took out the links and just had a button to download the book. And then all of a sudden I was getting a much higher open rate on my reader magnet. And then, of course, that has a massive knock-on effect to the amount of people that come onto your list and stay on your list and your growth from that point onwards.
Now, we talked a little bit about, obviously, newsletters a platform. Also, you may want social media as a platform, and there's so many of them out there right now. What do you see right now as the particular one that's working best? Not for ads, but, as far as actual social media, organic marketing?
I think social media is in a bit of a funny place at the moment. Like, I probably lean on Facebook more than anything purely because I get a lot of synergy between that and ads. But even though I'm a huge fan of Facebook ads, I can see what's happening to the social media side of the platform. Like, it's a lot of engagement bait, a lot of bots, and Facebook, rather than kind of trying to fence off that stuff, they're really leaning into it. They're like, oh, well, if the people are leaving Facebook, let's replace them with bots. Like, I'm not really thinking about how that might affect, the experience for the remaining humans on the platform or the viability of their ad platform. Obviously, I'm being a bit extremist there, but I think everyone has noticed the direction that Facebook is going in, but also all of them are kind of going in that direction. So I think each platform has issues and dangers. Like, when you look at Instagram, obviously the problem there is there's always an issue with links and it's a more visual platform. Threads, I'm not sure that is taking off. Twitter is its whole other thing that I'm not even going to get into. But I'm not as active there as I used to be, shall we say. And then TikTok has obviously has been the hot platform for several years now. But my issue with TikTok was one that I kind of felt from the very start, and I haven't changed my mind on it, is that engagement there is so shallow. So like you see people going, oh, I got 1 million retweets or 1 million views on this, and people can rack up huge numbers because, you know, when you're in that scroll and the algorithm has just like wired directly into your brain and just feeding you more and more, in my case, golden retrievers. And like, it's very difficult to remember what was 3 reels ago, you know, and what that last post was. So you'll get a lot of views, but like how much engagement are you really getting? Like out of those followers, how many of those are actually clicking through to your site and signing up? Like if you're making it work for you, great.
Some of those views are 1 second. They register as a view before you even scroll past. So you don't know, like.
And so, but even the people that don't like scroll on, like how engaged are they and how much do they remember 10 minutes later? Like for me, when I get into that scroll, it's almost like a flow state, except where you're not producing anything at all, except for just like bliss, or like it's like the endless void of something. I don't know what. Like
black
I think
hole.
It's like the abyss that Nietzsche used to talk about.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't hate it. You know, it's like almost like being in a flotation tank or something.
There is something weird, like some of those videos. Like I'll find myself watching something like stupid where a guy's putting together a glass wall or mosaic, and I'm like, how fascinating! I have no desire to do it, but I'm drawn in. So whoever's figured out the way to click those little buttons in our brain, they've done a good job with it. So.
I think, you know, social media naturally has become, first it started becoming a very image-based platform, and then obviously a very video-first platform. And now it's short video all the way. And I don't know how useful that is for authors. I'm not judging anyone who enjoys this, or especially those who have found a way to make it work for them. Maybe it's just that I haven't found a way to make it work for me. I'm totally open to that idea. But I just don't know if like dancing around your book or having someone wave it around even for a few seconds and say nice things about it, I don't know how much that is doing for people if they don't click right away. Will they remember anything? It's almost like someone mentioning your book on the radio and you're driving to work. And like, will you remember by the time you get to work and you open up your email to go to Amazon and buy the book? I don't know. I'm skeptical. So I think social media is in a funny place. TikTok hasn't just like stolen all the users of all the other platforms. It's also turned all the other platforms into pale imitations of TikTok. Like even YouTube now is like pushing short video a lot more, leading more into algorithm-based content. I'm on YouTube as well. And it used to always be about getting as many subscribers as possible. People still say to the videos like subscribe to follow. But like the really big guys don't even bother saying it anymore because they know it's all about algorithms now. It's all about keeping people engaged, which is why you have all that horrific choppy editing and, 8-second videos where someone like cooks a flan, without even showing you the ingredients. And like, because all that matters is people watching to the end. But I don't know how useful that is for us. Maybe I'm just getting old and I don't see how it works. But if I'm going to put all that effort into figuring out something like that, I want to know what the payoff is at the end. And with my newsletter, I know what the payoff is. I can see my stats. I know who's opening. And people are reading words. And then I'm trying to sell them books filled with words. That seems to line up a little bit better. Clearly, TikTok is having an impact on some author sales. Clearly, people have made Instagram and Facebook and every social media platform that's ever existed. Someone has made it work. I've even seen people use Instagram to sell huge numbers of poetry. So anything is possible. I don't want to talk down about anyone who's using this and either enjoying it on a personal level or benefiting from it professionally. But if an author's asking me for advice, should I put the time into building up my newsletter or building up my platform on Instagram or TikTok? There's no question in my mind they should be building up their newsletter. Not least because like what happens when everything goes the way that MySpace went or Facebook might be going now? What happens to all your followers? You can't take them with you. And like TikTok is also in a funny place at the moment with the sale to the US. And the algorithms, people talking about the algorithms not working the way they should and technical issues. And who knows that people won't flee to another platform after that. And so you've built up your platform in one place. And it's useless to you if everyone leaves. So with a newsletter though, like I've had to change providers 2 or 3 times. And all I do is click the export button, take my list with me. And with a little bit of hassle, everything works just as it did before, if not better. And you can't do that with social media. So you're building your house on land that you don't own. And so it's very important, I think, that you consider you build your headquarters on land that you own, and you own your list, you own your website. And so, yes, social media has its place, ads have their place too, but always be looking to get people back to your website, to your books, listings on the retailers, to your newsletter. And ultimately, that will benefit you the most.
All right, that's a good place to end. We've kept you for a really long time. Dave, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Our listeners are going to get a lot out of this.
Anytime.
Careful. We'll take you up on that.
Don't call me at 3 a.m., please.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks to our Patreon subscribers. We really appreciate you. Thanks always to Vellum. You guys are wonderful. Appreciate it. If you don't know what Vellum is, check the show notes, grab the link, check it out. Best formatting software. And we'll be back next week with a new episode of the Two Authors podcast. Until next time, be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favourite platform for new shows coming every week.